I am Jean Vanessa Sapuras, a third-year BSED Mathematics student. So our lesson for today is all about geography and how it affects one's culture. But before that, let us first have a short review on our past lesson about religion. So in the early years of multicultural education, religion was seldom, if ever, addressed as one of the prominent subcultures influencing a student's perception and behavior. Religion is very important as it helps in shaping an individual's person as gender, class, or ethnicity. Many religions are particularistic in that members believe that their religion is uniquely true and legitimate and all other religions are invalid. Other religious groups accept the validity of distinct religions that have grown out of different historical experiences. United States of America is one of the most religious countries in the world. It is identified that America is a Christian nation with a strong Protestant influence. The four major religions that thrive in the United States are the Protestantism, Catholicism, Judaism, and Islam. So what is geography? Geography comes from the Greek word geographia, which means a description of the Earth's surface. It is the study of places, cities, countries, mountains, deserts, rural areas, oceans, continents, and communities. So geographers are the person that study geography, and these people explore both the physical properties of the Earth's surface and the human societies that spread across it. So in a simple manner, geography seeks to understand where things are found, why they are there, and how they've developed and changed over time. Geography has two branches, namely the physical geography and human geography. Physical geography is the study of the physical features of the Earth, such as the climate, weather, soil, vegetation, and landforms. On the other hand, human geography is the study of the economic, social, and cultural systems that have evolved in a specific location. However, for our lesson, we will only tackle about human geography because we will be dealing on the cultural systems of a specific nation. We will examine how human culture interacts with the natural environment and the way that locations and places can have an impact on the people. Now I have here puzzle pieces of a map. All you have to do is to complete the puzzle and identify what country this map belongs to. So this is what the map looks like. Now, to which country does this map belongs to? That is correct. What you see on the screen is the map of the United States of America. So in this lesson, we will be discussing about the geography of the United States and how its region's culture are influenced by their locations. Regional differences become apparent to educators as they move from one area to another. This may lead to a number of adjustments in the way ones live, the content to be taught in the classroom, and the manner in which one interacts with the community. For instance, religion plays a more important role in some regions of the country than others, which could influence a teacher's approach to teaching specific lessons. Both the teachers and the students, as well as their parents and families, move around the country or globe due to a number of reasons. It may be about a new job or a new military campsite for the parents. So moving from one place to another that has different culture may result to the students experiencing cultural shock, an issue that should be considered as the students settle in their new schools. To meet the needs of students, educators have to be aware of the influences of geography on the culture of the people who live in that area. Regional comparisons are at times difficult to make with different sources utilizing different regional categories. That is why the federal government of the United States divided the country into four major regions. These are the West region, the Midwest, the Northeast, and the South region. Each region is distinctive, often with different political leanings, racial and ethnic difference, cuisine, and regional values. This data is gathered from the 2010 census, which revealed that the minority or non-white population had grown in every region of the United States. This was characterized by the 43% increase in the Hispanic states, with the lowest percentage of minorities in Maine, Vermont, and West Virginia. On the other hand, nearly half of the population in the West, which is 47%, is minorities, while it comprised 40% of the population in the South, 22% in the Midwest, and 31% in the Northeast regions of the United States. So examples of minority groups can be found in the metropolitan of Los Angeles area, wherein communities such as Little Saigon, Little Tokyo, Chinatown, and Koreatown have been established. These groups have moved and established to ethnic enclaves that is almost the same from the place they have left. In Los Angeles, these minority groups does not have to assimilate into the dominant culture and could continue to use their native languages. That is why, even up to the present, Chinatown, Koreatown, Little Tokyo, and Little Saigon are still flourishing in Los Angeles. So the legend here is that the blue bar graph is for the year 2010 and the orange one is for the year 2011. The states with the highest minority percentage are primarily in the West, while those with the lowest percentage are in the Midwest. The states of Hawaii with a minority percentage of 77%, California with 61%, New Mexico with 60%, and Texas with 56% comprise more than half of the population of the United States of America. So the data in this figure implies that year by year, the percentage of minority groups increases due primarily to an increasing number of immigrants throughout the world. The characteristics of the population and land on which people live can be used to group geographic areas with similar landscapes and histories. The racial, ethnic, and religious diversity varies from one region to another. That is why the United States has a complex systems of culture. The interests and perspectives of those who live in various geographic regions often are reflected in their stance on state and federal issues, as reflected in national elections, which distinguish the red or Republican and the blue or Democratic states. So the Republican states adhere to the federal form of government or federalism, wherein each state looks and functions like a country. On the other hand, the Democratic states demand that people choose their leader and that the government is the people itself. So we will further discuss the Republican and Democratic states of the United States later in this lesson. Since the states is divided into regions, a lot of differences can be identified among each regions, and some of it are the regional differences in education, religion, cuisine, health and well-being, as well as the regional differences in politics. As one travels across various regions in the United States, significant differences can be found across areas in relation to education. So individuals exploring teaching opportunities will find that the average salaries in some states are considerably higher or lower than in others. Teacher salary average is $56,689 in the District of Columbia, while the average state teacher salaries range from $40,023 in South Dakota to $76,566 in New York City. Average earnings for full-time teachers vary considerably from state to state and even within states. Salaries are lowest in Mississippi, while on average, New York City paid the highest average salary. The reason why teachers' average salary varies across regions is the state-to-state per capita student expenditures. To some extent, the expenditure variations may be a function of the regional cost of living. According to the National Education Association, the average per capita student expenditure in United States was $10,938. New York spent $19,523 per student, while Arizona was only $6,949 per student. Educational attainment varies across regions, and the percentage of individuals aged 25 and above without high school diploma varies across the different regions in the country. So, as what you can see from the table, the Midwest ranks the highest in terms of teacher salary of $70,581 with a 10% increase in salary as of 2011, while the West and South regions did not fare that is favorable to its educators. In 2018 and 2019, frustrated teachers in multiple states held walkouts and protests over the controversial issue of teacher pay. School districts generally pay teachers based on longevity and educational level, a system that has long drawn criticism from those who say it's unfair to pay top-performing teachers the same salary as mediocre teachers who've been in the field the same amount of time and have the same type of college degree. Among the regional differences, religion is the most important in the United States. The daily behaviors and values of an individual have a direct correlation to the individual's religious beliefs. Because values are often reflected in the platforms of political parties, individuals tend to support liberal or conservative platforms, parties, and candidates. In the recent national elections, states in the South and Midwest, along with the Mountain West, have supported Republican candidates, while the Northeast and Pacific West, including Hawaii, supported the Democratic candidates. The Republican adopts the more conservative platform, and thus they win the support of states and regions where the residents are religious conservatives. The conservative term in this lesson focuses on the movement of people that is aligned to the religious teachings and the will of God, while the Democratic parties focuses on the freedom of people to choose their leader and that the government is the people itself. Newport 2014 classified the religiosity of American people based on their self-indication of the importance of religion in their lives and attendance in religious services. According to Newport, 41% of the American people were classified as very religious and 29% are somewhat religious or non-religious. Mississippi and Alabama, with 77% of its population, led the country as the most Protestant states in the country, followed closely by three other southern states, Arkansas, Tennessee, and South Carolina. Rhode Island has the highest percentage of Catholics, followed by New Jersey, Massachusetts, and New York City. New York, with 7% of its population, identified themselves as Jewish. Utah has the largest percentage of Latter-day Saints or Mormons, followed by Idaho, Wyoming, Nevada, and Montana. So Mormons are a religious group that embrace the concepts of Christianity as well as the revelations made by their founder, Joseph Smith. They primarily belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is headquartered in Salt Lake City, Utah, and has more than 16 million members worldwide. Another Mormon denomination, the Community of Christ, is centered in Independence, Missouri, and has about 250 members. The religion was officially founded in 1830 when the Book of Mormon was published. As individuals migrated to the United States from different parts of the world, they brought with them their cuisines. Different groups of immigrants settled in different regions of the country, and each regional cuisine developed over time that is influenced by the natural ingredients of the region and the historical cuisines of the settlers. One noteworthy definition of a regional cuisine is based upon traditional cuisine. A traditional cuisine is a coherent tradition of food preparation that rises from the daily lives and kitchens of people over an extended period in a specific region of a country or a specific country, and which, when localized, has notable distinctions from the cuisine of the country as a whole. Regional food preparation traditions, customs, and ingredients often combine to create dishes unique to a particular region. Regional cuisines are often named after the geographic areas or regions that they originate from. The well-being index ranges from the highest well-being score down to the lowest well-being score, with Midwestern and Western states as highest rated states and West Virginia, Kentucky, Indiana, and Southern states as lowest rated states. The well-being index is also composed of five sub-indexes: the purpose, social, financial, community, and physical indexes. The darkest states have the highest well-being score, while the lightest states rank lowest on the list. Reuters 2015 reported that Alaska ranked at the top of the list of states with the highest well-being score, followed closely by Hawaii and South Dakota. In comparison, Los Angeles and Indiana are lowest well-being states. It's not just about being happy by living in a scenic, warm place. The report measures how Americans feel about their physical health, social connections, finances, community, and sense of purpose. For instance, Hawaii residents report low obesity rates and little daily stress. They regularly exercise, eat lots of produce, and feel safe where they live. They are also the best in the nation for having enough money to do everything they need to do. The negative effects of smoking have long ceased to be a debatable issue. In a Gallup study, Kentucky, with over 29% of its population, led the country with the largest percentage of residents who smoke. In states throughout the South and Midwest, 1 in 4 Americans smoke. In comparison, Utah had the lowest percentage of smokers, followed by California and Hawaii. Western states were well represented among the states with low smoking percentage. The smoking statistics for the year 2022 has dramatic changes. The pandemic has caused some people to quit smoking, while in other countries like the United States, the number of tobacco smokers has increased. Besides binge watching, eating, and drinking, COVID-19 is also responsible for the increase in smoking cigarettes due to increased stress, anxiety, and boredom. CDC smoking statistics report that there are 34.1 million adult smokers in the United States. 75% of them smoke cigarettes daily. In total, they have smoked at least 100 cigarettes in their life. On the other hand, in 2020, 13 million Americans tried to quit this unhealthy habit. Alcohol is one of the most commonly used substances in the United States. The 2019 National Survey on Drug Use and Health, which provides addiction statistics, offers the following alcohol facts. 85.6% of adults aged 18 and above reported drinking alcohol at least once in their lives, with 69.5% reported having alcohol in the past year and 54.9% having alcohol in the past month. Alcohol is a significant cause of death in the United States. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 95,000 people die every year due to alcohol-related causes. That is an average of 261 deaths per day. The National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism reports that alcohol-related deaths are on the rise. The most recent statistics from NAIA indicates that alcohol-related deaths increased from 35,914 in 1999 to 72,558 in 2017. In the 2019, the CDC reports that the number of deaths due to alcohol liver disease was 24,110, while the number of alcohol-induced deaths, not counting accidents and homicides, was 39,043. The 2018 National Health Interview Survey indicates rates of current regular users of alcohol, which is defined by having at least 12 drinks in a person's lifetime and at least 12 drinks in the past year. The following percentage indicate the current regular users of alcohol among different racial groups. 8% of white Americans, 7% of black African Americans, 3% of American Indian or Alaska Natives, 8% of Asian Americans, 2% of those who identified as both black or African American and white, 9% of those who identified as both American Indian or Alaska Natives and white, 7% of Hispanic or Latino Americans. Nearly every patient hospitalized with COVID-19 had more than one underlying health issue. According to a large study of patients in the New York City, high blood pressure, obesity, and diabetes top the list of common underlying conditions. Western and Mountain States has the highest score for these diseases, and West Virginia and Southern States has the worst scores. An estimated of 34.2 million people have diabetes, and that is 10.5% of the U.S. population. According to the American Diabetes Association's economic cost of diabetes, the total estimated cost of diagnosed diabetes in 2017 was $327 billion, including $237 billion in direct medical costs and $90 billion in reduced productivity. According to 2007 statistics from the World Health Organization, the United States has the highest prevalence of overweight adults in the English-speaking world. Obesity in the United States has been increasingly cited as a major health issue in recent decades, resulting in diseases such as coronary heart diseases that lead to mortality. Health issues are often closely associated with regional diets. Southern states are known for their high-calorie foods such as fried chicken, steaks, and desserts. While these foods may be culinary delights, excessive amounts contribute to health risks. The health risks have significant implications for the possibility of heart attacks, strokes, and other debilitating conditions. All results of a nationwide election in the U.S. can usually be translated into a binary map that is divided into red states, or the Republican, which is mainly in the middle, and the blue states, or the Democratic, that is mostly on the coasts. The map for the 2012 national election shows that the states in blue voted President Barack Obama, while the states in red were won by the Republican candidate Mitt Romney. Massachusetts, Maryland, and Rhode Island are the most Democratic states, while Wyoming, Utah, and Idaho are the most Republican states in the country. However, many of the states around Great Lakes such as Ohio, Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin are sometimes considered battleground states because neither of the major political party has such an overwhelming public support that election results can be taken for granted. The electorate in one of these states may switch political preferences from one election to another depending on the major issues at the time of the election. Rural, urban, and suburban areas are three different ways in which one can describe the area that they live in as it is related to the population in that area. In the United States, 81% of its population live in towns, cities, and metropolitan areas with 50,000 people or more. The main difference between rural, urban, and suburban areas is that rural areas are generally open and spread out with a small population, while the suburban areas are residential areas with a larger population than rural areas, whereas the urban area is one with a high population for both living and working. Today, rural areas are the location of choice for 19% of the U.S. population. People may choose to live in rural areas because they enjoy the wide open space, the stars in the sky, the fishing, hunting, and other outdoor activities. Rural areas feature fewer people with home to contend and the freedom to have more control of one's life. Rural areas are basically a countryside where farming and natural resources are taken in use to earn income. They have the basic necessities, but these areas do not have the medical services for which they have to go to the cities. In the 20th century, large numbers of rural workers migrated to cities for employment because job payments in cities are much higher than in small town and other rural areas. While there may be a tendency to think of rural areas as populated primarily by individuals involved in farming, fewer than 1% of Americans farm for a living as of today, and only 2% of the American population live on farms. The massive areas of rural land are dotted with small towns, some of which serve as the country seats for government purposes. The residents of these towns may work in a nearby city hall or in local manufacturing establishments. They may also provide services to farming communities where the process of grain distribution to nation and world market begins. The states with the largest rural populations are Texas, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Georgia. The rural population across the country is predominantly of European backgrounds. In recent decades, increasing numbers of Hispanic and African Americans have moved into rural areas. However, through the years, there is a decline in the U.S. rural population. Rural population refers to people living in rural areas as defined by National Statistical Office. It is calculated as the difference between total population and urban population. U.S. rural population for 2020 was 57,119,368, a 0.82% decline from 2019. U.S. rural population for 2019 was 57,592,357, a 0.69% decline from 2018. U.S. rural population for 2018 was 57,994,170, a 0.58% decline from 2017, and the U.S. rural population for 2017 was 58,333,412, a 0.45% decline from 2016. Not all is idyllic in rural areas. The rural workforce earns less than its urban counterparts, and the poverty rate is higher than in urban areas of the country. Regionally, the highest poverty is found in the south, followed by the west, the northeast, and the midwest regions. Rural economic and demographic changes are closely linked with each other. Both are essential to understanding whether diverse rural areas are prospering or in distress, and how underlying factors such as education affect the well-being of rural communities. Recent trends point to relatively slow employment and population growth in rural areas, accompanied by increase in poverty. but these trends vary widely across rural America. Rural areas vary in the industries that underpin their economies. Countries' employment levels are more sensitive to economic trends that strongly affect their leading industries. For example, trends in agricultural prices have a disproportionate effect on farming-dependent countries, which accounted for nearly 20% of all rural countries and 6% of the rural population in 2017. The rural economy is sensitive to fluctuations in manufacturing and export rates. Farm production can fluctuate with crop prices, which are controlled by the world economy and weather. Successful farmers today use technology and business principles to maintain their farm, but the nature of this business is making it difficult for small farmers to survive. There is a large disparity on the poverty rate between the urban and rural areas as shown in the graph. The South is the poorest among the four regions, with over 25% of its population suffering from poverty. Non-metro areas had a higher rate of poverty than metro areas since the 1960s, when poverty rates were first officially recorded. Over time, however, the difference between non-metro and metro poverty rates has generally narrowed, falling from an average difference of 4.5 percentage points in the 1980s to an average gap of about 3 percentage points in 2010 to 2018. In 2019, the non-metro poverty rate was 15.4%, while the metro rate was 11.9%. Rural schools play an important role in their communities, serving many functions beyond education. Given their prevalence and importance in their communities, rural schools merit more attention than they have previously been given. They often act as the center of social, recreational, and cultural life in their communities. In addition, schools provide jobs in rural areas. Schools in rural areas are generally smaller than those in suburban and urban areas, but this means that there are fewer students to manage, a better opportunity to get to know all of the students. Although the low enrollment of the students results to giving the teachers more attention for the students, it has become a problem for the teachers to teach subjects that is out of their fields. Schools often do not have sufficient resources to offer foreign language classes, technology education, music, arts, and advancement classes. This is due to the high poverty rate in rural areas. Nationwide, 64% of rural countries have high rates of child poverty, compared with 47% of urban countries. This results to schools to have low funds to support educational tools and materials, which leads students to have poor academic performance and academic achievements. In multicultural education, equal access to educational opportunities, despite the student's race, culture, and social economic status, is the goal. That is why proponents of consolidation argue that curriculum can be expanded to include subjects that are not available in small schools. Buildings can be upgraded with educational equipments and technology so that learning improvement of the students can be met. Urban areas are large areas that consist of both living and working areas with high population. They have all the basic necessities and advanced medical services, and also these areas are a lot congested. Some people chose to live in urban areas because of the excitement and access to amenities. Large cities offer abundant professional jobs as well as colleges and universities, restaurants, and clubs with entertainment. Urban areas are modernized and more developed compared to rural areas. That is why a lot of people chose to settle in urbanized areas. Geography plays a role in defining the conditions of a city. The upper middle class and wealthy live together in one or more particular areas. They are usually settled in luxurious villages that middle-class and low-income individuals cannot afford. The middle-class and low-income families live in other areas in which housing are not too expensive and that are separated in areas where most homeless people thrive. On the other hand, homeless people live in areas where most people can't see them. This is for the reason that most of their homes are for free. In the Philippines, areas for the homeless are called squatter areas. They live primarily under bridges or near the garbage dump site areas. Homeless people are scavengers. They sell plastics and metals while other people are beggars on the roadside of cities. One half of the world's population live in megacities. New York City is the largest city in the United States with a population of around 9.3 million, which grows to over 20 million when extended into the metropolitan area that includes its suburbs. Cities in developing nations have limited means or resources to provide housing, sanitation, and a healthy environment for their growing populations. Not all new immigrants in the U.S. have access to adequate and expensive housing. Some families share a small house while some families end up being homeless. 52 metropolitan areas in the United States have over 1 million residents. They range in size from the metropolitan New York to New Jersey City area, with approximately 20 million, to Grand Rapids, Wyoming, Michigan, with just over 1 million people. The ethnic and racial diversity is greater in cities than in other areas due to numerous immigrants from around the world that settle in urban areas. Some of the most populous cities in the United States have held on to those top spots decades after decades. In fact, New York City has been the largest U.S. metropolitan area since the country's first census in 1790. The other longtime holders of top three titles are Los Angeles and Chicago. The map shows how New York City compares its size to other major cities around the world. New York City ranks third as the most populous city in the world with over 20 million people. The culture and ethnicity in New York City is diverse because of immigrants from other regions in the world. They brought with them their culture and assimilated to the dominant culture that is thriving in New York. Cities are centers of extremes and contradictions. They are places where people from different cultural backgrounds intermingle. In most cities of the United States, some of the highest salaries in the world can be found. However, large numbers of African Americans, Puerto Ricans, Mexican Americans, and others of color, as well as women who work in the city, are paid so little that their families live in poverty. Unequal job payment in the United States is a result of racism and dominant culture context. Until now, issues in gender equality and women empowerment is still contested because of the great disparities between men and women. In terms of salaries, men are paid 3 times higher compared to women despite their educational attainments. Cities are also hostile environments for the homeless people. Many city residents live in safe and comfortable environments with good schools, parks, and recreational facilities, while others live near waste dumps that have contributed to a disproportionately high incidence of harmful and serious diseases. There is always day and night trouble in cities. Every single day can be interrupted by the sound of gunshots, ambulances, and police raids in sections of a city. Cities are very crowded areas with different types of people. That is why alarming situations often happen every single day and night. Poverty and violence are two of the major issues that cities should be concerned of. There is high rate of poverty in cities, but much higher in rural areas. The spike in poverty are mainly due to large number of immigrants who seek employment in cities, but are sometimes rejected because of their cultural and regional backgrounds. Enrollment in the largest 100 school districts ranges from 46,552 in Anchorage, Alaska to 1,036,053 in New York City schools. Between 2001 and 2011, the number of white students in U.S. public schools decreased from 28.7 million to 26.5 million and from 60% to 52%. Majority of the immigrants and individuals of color often migrate to city areas. That is why a large number of students in most urban schools are from ethnic minority backgrounds. For Hadley 2014, an urban school is essentially a code term for poor minority schools. She indicated that on average, 64% of the students receive free or reduced price lunches. This is an indication that their families are either near or at the line of poverty. Some urban schools often have outdated textbooks, inadequate technology and equipment, insufficient materials, and deteriorating physical plants. In these schools, teachers are often unqualified to teach the subject matter to which they are assigned. Parents involved to their child's education are different from each other. Parents in upper middle class donate funds to hire teachers for art and music. They pay for tutors to ensure that their children have the knowledge and skills necessary for entry into desirable colleges and universities. On the contrary, low-income parents are actively engaged to their child education through active communication with their teachers and help ensure that their children are monitored. Unlike high-income parents, low-income parents does not have the money to support and sponsor school activities. That is why most of their children are deprived of attending extracurricular activities of the school. So there are three types of schools in the United States. The first one is an urban school, which is often characterized as highly centralized, authoritative, and bureaucratic. A number of urban school districts elect school boards, reduce the bureaucracy, and allow the establishment of the alternative schools. The term bureaucracy refers to a form of government in which the decision for the school comes from the state instead of the school representative or the school head or principal. Magnet school refers to public schools in which the curriculum emphasizes a particular subject or field such as performing arts or science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Magnet schools usually receive additional funding that provides resources for their students, supplies, teachers, and educational programs. Charter schools are also public schools of choice that operate free from many of the regulations that apply to traditional public. In the Philippines, charter schools are like schools that are named after its founder or sponsor, like the Floreta Herrera Erizari National High School located at Lanuza, Surigao del Sur. Charter schools also include performance contracts detailing the school's mission, vision, goals, and ways on how to improve student learning. Suburban areas are mainly residential areas with population more than rural but less than urban areas. These areas have limited resources and only have a little political autonomy. These areas have a lot of single-family homes that are close to one another. They have all the basic necessities and also have good medical services. Suburban areas are also known as suburbs. They have small shopping malls which rural areas don't have. These areas are near or outside of urban areas. Just like in urban areas, ethnic minority groups like the African Americans suffer the greatest oppression among the suburban areas of the United States. They are deprived of opportunities to owning houses and equal job payments because most suburban areas are exclusive to whites only. Along these developments in the suburbs, immigrants from minority groups face problems like unemployment, homelessness, drugs, and crimes. The quality of the schools is often one of the reasons why families move from cities to suburbs because the suburbs are fairly new and their schools are not in despair. Wealthy suburbs are more likely to have beautiful schools with the latest technology, qualified teachers, advanced placement courses, gifted and talented programs, and numerous extracurricular activities. However, not all suburban schools are of high quality. Those that predominantly serve students with limited English skills from low-income families and from backgrounds other than Europe are likely to be older schools in the region. Lack of facilities, new equipment, and advanced technology may find the recruitment for teachers more challenging. Across the different regions and regional differences in the United States, disparities between white people and skin of color, between dominant groups and ethnic minority groups, and between men and women continue to be an issue in the country. Upon studying the geographic location of the United States, we found out that skin of color like the African Americans and other minority groups are continuously oppressed by the majority. So discrimination, racism, and sexism delimits these people from obtaining equal opportunities to things that will somehow lift them up from the federal poverty line. So let us reflect from this lesson about the goal of multicultural education to provide children with equal access to educational opportunities despite their race, class, gender, and social economic status to help them secure a successful job in the future. Because from time to time, skin of color are degraded due to lack of education, knowledge, and skills that are necessary traits to keep them from coping to the fast-changing societies across the globe. So that would be all for my lesson. I hope you have gained something from me, and I hope that those learnings can be applied to real life situations. So once again, I am Jen Vanessa Sapuras. Thank you and God bless everyone.